Alright, I know what you're thinking. Nobody hates Ozzy Osbourne. And within the heavy metal community, that can be very true. I don't know very many people that hate him myself within the heavy metal construct. And really here in 2018, there might not be a lot of people, period. However, you have to remember that whenever we do these 5 reasons videos, we're not just talking about heavy metal fans. We're talking about the casual fan, we're talking about the pop fan, the person who just likes NASCAR and drinking beer, concerned moms, and, all of their ridiculosity. Think of Kyle Broflovsky's mom. Damn. So we're actually looking at the whole, and Ozzy has been around for about 50 years whenever it comes to the music business, so there's certainly been a lot of bumps in the road in between that have caused folks to act very irrationally and judge him based off of things that were kind of just silly. So let's take a look at this. Let's take a look through this long career, 5 reasons why people hate or either hated Ozzy Osbourne, and believe me, some of these are truly ridiculous. Including number 5, which is they hate him for his music. Now, anymore, this is not so much of a concern. However, in the 1980s, this was a concern considering one of his songs was very controversial, and it led to something that was controversial, which was the suicide of a young person to the song Suicide Solution, or at least that's what was reported. It was stated that this song was played by the gentleman who committed suicide, and he was admittedly a big-time heavy metal fan and everything, and it brought up the question about whether or not heavy metal was good for the youth and good for society, good for culture, blah, blah, blah. And you might think, well, this is just another attack, whoop-de-ding-dong. But this was the 1980s. This was a time whenever heavy metal was in the forefront because of glam metal, thrash metal, and also because of the PRMC and Tipper Gore. Based off of all of that, this was something that was bringing up that conversation once again, and also gave a lot of concerned parents and a lot of folks that were supporters of Tipper's mission reason to vilify Ozzy Osbourne instantaneously and reason to hate him based around one song that they probably didn't even hear and just read lyrics to, not understanding context, not understanding anything. But of course, that's all that it takes, especially whenever it came to a mission such as Tipper Gore's, where it seemed like no matter what the context of a song was, no matter what the lyricism may have stated, it immediately gave them reason to hate the artist or find them to be not good for the children. Number 4, the reality TV show. Now, the Osbournes might have actually been a reason why some heavy metal fans started to dismiss Ozzy or even bona fide hate him a little bit. Think that maybe he sold out by having his own reality television show for MTV. However, whenever it comes to shows where you just follow people around, this was actually one of the more acceptable ones, one of the funnier ones, one that was actually kind of cool. Maybe some folks felt that it wasn't a very good representation for heavy metal, or made him just seem like a pop icon. But you have to remember, the true definition of pop icon is somebody that is popular and is known by a lot of people. So yeah, Ozzy actually kind of fits that bill. However, this was a show that certainly didn't seem to show him in the, perhaps glorious light that many people have seen him as, and of course heavy metal fans feeling him to be one of the metal gods. Seeing him, in a bathrobe struggling to turn on a television may not necessarily have been the funniest thing for them. Not to mention, some of those outsiders who came in and viewed this and had their first impression of Ozzy may have immediately dismissed this family as weird, and for that reason alone, they wouldn't want to listen to his music, or wouldn't want to watch anything that Sharon Osbourne was associated with, which, well, half of it's crap, so who cares? Number 3, hey, his wife, Sharon. Yeah, and this is one that is not just based around her appearances on some of the Got Talent shows or whatever it was. It has really little to do with the Osbournes in general. In fact, whenever it came to heavy metal fans, it had to do with one incident that happened at an Ozfest about 10 years ago. And that was the Ozfest in which Sharon and Kelly threw eggs at Iron Maiden. As the story goes, during the ending of a show, which Iron Maiden was going to be one of the headliners of the show, they believed, Sharon and Kelly, that Bruce and the boys were aiming to upstage Ozzy and had been doing so throughout that tour, that they were trying to be bigger than the headliners themselves. And so they took matters into their own hands. They turned off the PA, that way the songs couldn't be heard. They started pelting them with eggs. Were leading jeers in the crowd, and the rest is history. It caused a bitter feud. It caused Iron Maiden to consider, for a time, not coming back to the United States, which, of course, didn't happen. Eventually, they did come back, and they have been kicking ass here ever since. However, this has caused a lot of negative backlash not only to Sharon, but also as a result to Ozzy. Remember, some folks are very fickle. Whenever something happens with one, they immediately associate it with the other, considering they're married, together, there's a business relationship, blah blah blah, and considering Iron Maiden fans and Ozzy Osbourne fans are traditionally the same people, and they felt like they had to choose a side if they went the side of Iron Maiden, that immediately meant, fuck Ozzy Osbourne. This is something that didn't last very long, so it's not something that today is really going to be seen as a reason why somebody doesn't pick up an Ozzy Osbourne record. However, at the time, it seemed like a really big deal, not to mention it was a feud that was talked about for probably about a year, until finally it seemed like things were resolved a little bit. Number two, they simply hate heavy metal. This goes back to the whole PRMC idea, but instead takes it to a little bit more of a basic level. People who dislike heavy metal are immediately going to maybe talk very poorly about metal icons. So instead of saying, well, I hate Immortal, or I hate, In Full Darkness, I really dislike an Abstract Illusion, they're going to go with the names that they actually know, the ones that are out there and very, visible to the public. So they're going to say that they hate Ozzy Osbourne, they're going to say that they hate Metallica, they're going to say that they hate Megadeth, or Five Finger Death Punch, whatever it might be. However, simply hating heavy metal alone is one of the big reasons why Ozzy never gets any love from these folks, even though these are tracks that they hear whenever they go to sporting events. They might hear Crazy Train, or perhaps Over the Mountain, you never know. And it's just kind of ridiculous to think that a simple hatred of an entire subgenre would really just exclude them from trying something out. Especially considering Ozzy's music, while it is purely heavy metal, is heavy metal in its basic form, its purest form. The form that began in the 1970s and has, survived and has been cut to pieces with different subgenres ever since. This is kind of ridiculous also, but at the same time, it also leads up to the combination of the music as well as number one, which is Ozzy Osbourne's reputation. Ozzy's reputation in the 1980s was constantly damaged. And it was one that was already in need of rebuild after the way in which he and Black Sabbath parted ways in the late 1970s. Considering his drug use was extreme and his antics were almost legendary, it was something that already had poisoned some of the minds of those that had heard some of these stories and didn't know much about the man or didn't know much about the music. Fans of the band already were going to buy into the stuff and already liked the material that they heard, not only from Black Sabbath, even though the last couple of albums were kind of iffy, and then definitely from his solo work that began in the 1980s. However, once the legends of him biting the head off of a bat and a dove were starting to circulate, and some of the other antics that occurred in the 1980s, the reputation really went to a new low and caused a lot more people to want to distance themselves from somebody who they literally thought was a madman, who they literally thought was insane. And these were big events that created landmark attention throughout the news. And that caused a lot more of those folks that were just going to hate based around what they hear in the media to immediately start hating even harder, or start hating, period. Add in to the fact that Suicide Solution had the problem that it did in the latter portions of the 1980s, and once again that reputation comes under fire once again. Now in the 1990s, there really wasn't all that much that happened to his reputation. In fact, Ozzy enjoyed some moderate success with No More Tears, as well as some of the latter works that he did with the building and foundation of Ozzfest. But again, the reputation took the hit because of what happened at Ozzfest with Iron Maiden. It took a hit with heavy metal fans, though, instead of it being one that was purely based around media attention. So throughout his career, his reputation, Ozzy's, has been in this fluctuation period. And while there have been a lot of us that have been able to easily ignore that, put things to the side, and recognize that Ozzy is just Ozzy, and is just a wild and crazy asshole that just does kind of whatever he wants, a lot of folks have migrated away or have never come to the madman's playground based off of the antics over the past 40 years. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. 5 reasons why people either hate or hated, mostly hated, this is a lot of stuff in the past, Ozzy Osbourne. If you think that there was something that was missed, let me know in the comments below. If you think that there is a band that needs to be roasted, toasted, and burnt to a crisp via a 5 reasons video, let me know in the comments below as well. I'm CoverKillerNation. Talk to you guys next time. Take care.